Okay, let's be honest. When you hear the word grammar, what pops into your head? My guess is dusty old textbooks and a whole lot of red ink, right? Well, we're going to deconstruct that whole idea. You're about to see that grammar is actually this fascinating, living system, so much more than just a boring set of rules.
Oh yeah, that feeling. The confusion, the frustration, trying to memorize all these rules that had nothing to do with how people actually talk. We have all been there. But what if I told you the way we were all taught grammar was only like half the story?
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to see that grammar really isn't what you think it is. We'll dive into the huge debate over whether we should even teach it. We'll explore the clash between rules and reality, peek into the secret toolkit teachers use, and finally, we'll see why it all just comes down to context.
All right, first things first. Let's just toss out that old idea of grammar being some ancient, static rule book that's set in stone. It's not at all. It's actually a dynamic, living, breathing system that's always changing to fit what we need as communicators.
I love this idea from the linguist Diane Larson Freeman. She says language organizes itself from the bottom up, almost like a living thing. Just think about that for a second. It's not some top-down order from on high. It literally grows out of how we, the people who use it, actually speak. It's built for us. So what even is it then? Well, the funny thing is, even the experts don't have one single simple answer. For some, it's just about how we stick words together. For a legend like Chomsky, it's this huge field of studying sounds, structure, and meaning. But my favorite definition, and the one I want you to hold on to, is this last one. Grammar is a complete system for making meaning. And this brings us to a massive debate in the world of language education. I mean, think about it. If we all learned our first language perfectly fine without any formal lessons, why should we even bother teaching grammar in a classroom?
So on one side, you've got this argument that teaching grammar rules is like reading the instruction manual for a car engine, but never actually getting to drive the car. You learn about the language, but not how to use it. The idea here is that classroom time is way more valuable if it's spent just, well, communicating and letting the grammar sink in naturally, just like when we were kids.
But then you've got the other camp. They argue that without some direct instruction, a learner's mistakes can fossilize. Basically, they get locked in and become permanent bad habits. Teaching the rules helps you spot patterns you'd otherwise miss. And let's be real, learning a new language is a huge task. Having some rules can make it feel a lot less chaotic, and in the end, help you be more creative and precise.
This old debate really boils down to two completely different ways of looking at grammar itself. And I like to think of it as the judge versus the scientist.
First up, let's meet the judge. This is what we call prescriptive grammar. The name kind of gives it away, right? It prescribes the rules, like a doctor's prescription. It tells you what you should do, laying down the law for the one correct way to speak. This is the grammar of your high school English papers.
And then we have the scientist. This is descriptive grammar. And again, the name says it all. It simply describes what it sees. A descriptive grammarian isn't there to tell people how they should talk. They're more like a biologist in the wild, just observing and taking notes on how people actually use language every day.
This makes the difference super clear. Prescriptive grammar gives you the formal, correct way, she is older than I. Descriptive grammar just notes the real way, what you'd actually hear people say. She's older than me. And the key thing is, one isn't better than the other, they just have totally different jobs.
Okay, time for a little puzzle. You see this headline in the paper. What on earth is going on? A riot over furniture? It's just a jumble of words, right? This is where descriptive grammar, understanding the real rules of how something works, is basically a superpower. And here's the secret. You have to read it backwards. It's a riot about a cut in pay at a factory that makes furniture. Bam! Once you know the descriptive rule of how these headlines are built, the chaos instantly makes perfect sense. That's the power of being a scientist instead of a judge. So, if you're a teacher trying to help students navigate all of this, what do? Well, you've got a secret toolkit with two main approaches you can take.
The deductive method is the classic one you probably remember. It's top-down. The teacher gets up and says, "Okay, everyone, here is the rule." Then you spend the rest of the time practicing that rule with different examples. It's rule first, practice second. Simple as that.
But then you can flip that whole thing around with the inductive method. This one is bottom-up. The teacher gives you a bunch of examples first, maybe a story or a conversation, and then has the class work like detectives to figure out the pattern and discover the rule for themselves.
And as you can see, they both have their strengths. The deductive, rule-first approach is faster and can give you a nice sense of security. But the inductive, example-first way is all about the student. It encourages much deeper thinking and really builds the skills to learn on your own. A great teacher knows which tool to grab for the right situation.
And that brings us to our final big idea, the one that really ties everything we've talked about together. After all these debates and methods, modern grammar teaching gets that it's all about context, and you can look at that context in 3 crucial dimensions. It's called the 3D grammar framework, and to really truly know any piece of grammar, you need to understand 3 things about it. First, its form. How do you actually put the pieces together? Second, its meaning. What concept is it actually expressing? And third, and this is the most important one, its use. When and why is this the right choice for this specific conversation? Form, meaning, and use. You need all 3.
Because when you really think about it, what does it mean to master a language? True mastery isn't just about memorizing a long list of rules out of a book.
It's knowing how to choose the perfect form to express the perfect meaning in exactly the right situation. It's a dynamic skill, this incredible balancing act between structure, what you mean, and the social context you're in.
Here's the best way to think about it. Knowing the rules is like owning a dictionary. All the correct information is there, sure, but knowing how to use grammar in context, well, that's having a conversation. It's alive, it's interactive, and it's where all the real meaning happens.
So we've come a long way. We went from seeing grammar as a set of dusty rules to a living, breathing system. We saw the fight between the judge and the scientist, we peeked into the teacher's secret toolkit, and we landed on this amazing 3D view of communication. Now that you know the secrets, the question is, how will you look at language differently?